Shut up and sit down.
Hey guys, I'm Sai, and welcome to H.A.A.R Podcast Nation, the channel which features podcast series on a variety of subjects. We have shows and series on mental health, football, films, TV, wrestling, music, and much more, including a brand new series on serial killers. We have new guests each week. We've had footballers, doctors, medical professionals, journalists, podcasters, authors, and more. Over the coming months, we've several fascinating shows coming up with a blogger, an award-winning film composer who has got a single coming out, an actress, a former footballer, as well as new shows on mental health in sport, bipolar, DID, and anxiety disorders, as well as the weekly conspiracy theory shows. The serial killer show was mentioned, and the monthly films and TV podcast. Today's episode is the 10th in our series on conspiracy theories, and is quite a fascinating one. So today we're going to look at H.A.A.R P, and other secret technology. To join us as we take a trip down the rabbit hole of paranoia and secrecy again is my co-host Rhys. Welcome, Rhys. You right, buddy?
Hi, Sai. Hello, everyone else.
Hi. It's a weird one, this is. So well, let's do the little disclaimer thing, just because, you know, the one week I don't do it, someone will moan. So before we head down the terrifying and weird road to conspiracy theories, we want to point out that just because we discuss a particular theory does not mean that we believe it to be true, agree with the points of view, or in any way think that that is how it went down. We are simply going to discuss popular conspiracy theories and the evidence presented by the people who championed them. So let's start with H.A.A.R P, because I think H.A.A.R P is really dodgy, so dodgy.
Yeah.
I watched a documentary on it. Must have been about 5 years ago. I was just terrified. I was just like, Jesus Christ! And these people who do all these like secret research, programs and stuff, they've just got no regard to like what they're doing. And they just push, because they push the boundaries, which I understand you've got to do to a certain extent. But like they're firing things into the atmosphere to test what it can do, and the ionosphere and stuff like that. And this just can't be good.
Totally 100% agree, but you know me, devil's advocate. What if they know something we don't and they've got to do this?
Not sure about that, mate. To be honest with you, I don't trust anything which involves DARPA. So
I don't trust anything that involves anyone but me.
Yeah, it's true. That's a very good point. Okay, so what is H.A.A.R P? So H.A.A.R P, which is H.A.A.R P, it stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Was initiated as an ionospheric research program jointly funded by the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, and the University of Alaska Fairbanks. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, which is DARPA, it was designed and built by BAU Advanced Technologies. And its original purpose was to analyze the ionosphere and investigate the potential for developing ionospheric and enhancement technology for radio communications and surveillance. They love surveillance, I've got to be honest. As a university-owned facility, H.A.A.R P is a high-powered, high-frequency transmitter which is used for the study of the ionosphere. So, like, the ionosphere is like the atmosphere is made up of different levels, and basically the ionosphere is one of those levels. So, I mean,
it's energy. Energy can be used as a weapon.
Yeah, and I mean, basically what it is it's just like a load of big, huge poles with like radio transmitters in like an X at the top, like massive, as big as house poles, like, and there's just hundreds of them right next to each other, and yeah, they just fire energy basically into the atmosphere, and see what comes of it. I guess they say it's like I say for advancements in communications and all this type of stuff. But the residents of the local place, I think it's Alaska, isn't it?
Yeah, Alaska.
They complain of a constant humming and headaches and that sort of stuff, which they believe is caused by these radio waves and frequencies constantly being shot up into the atmosphere.
Of course it's going to be. There was problems with mobile phones years ago.
Oh, well, there probably still is, mate. It's just the mobile phone companies make so much money that they keep it quiet, don't they? So it doesn't. They don't want you to know that you're rotting your brain, having your phone glued to your hands and your head. But that's another story. We will have to do one actually on like corporations and tobacco companies and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
One day, because that'll be a good one. All the links to the dodgy mafia people. And so H.A.A.R P is there's loads of conspiracy theories around it. The one which I find most sort of fascinating is the one that it can control weather, because obviously in the 70s and 80s, Russia and Britain and America, all the sort of superpowers of the world, if you like, they desperately wanted a weather weapon. They were all researching it to try and work out how they could do it, because simply put, if you can control the weather, you can wipe out, you can send a country who could be your biggest sort of ally or your biggest enemy back into the Stone Age in a week without firing a single weapon, like without firing a single gun or missile or anything like that. So
Totally.
first of all, mate, like, do you think, before I go into like the details and perhaps some of the disasters which have taken place, which people link to H.A.A.R P, do you think that weather weapons would A, be viable, and B, if they were viable and able to be used, do you think they would use them?
I think they're already out there. I think they have been used. I think they're more of a contributing factor to climate change than the human population is, mate.
Oh, fucking hell. Climate change.
Was it 2004 was it? Or 2014 they shut H.A.A.R P down?
I'm not 100% sure, mate. You broke up a little bit then, so I didn't. Did you say they shut it down?
Was it 2014 the US Air Force declared they were shutting H.A.A.R P down?
No, they shut down. They didn't shut down the main one. They shut down as like an offshoot. So it was a similar facility elsewhere, I believe. Sure, I read that when I was researching it earlier. But the main one is still going, as far as I'm aware. But they did shut down one, which there's some people, like high profile people, who've spoken out against it. There's one guy who worked there, and who is linked to he's the brother of a senator, but we'll get to that now. He's like quite vocal about it, because they've got people who've worked there.
Yeah.
Those people who've worked there now are like whistleblowers, are saying no, they're telling you it's for this, but actually, it's not for that at all. And really, mate, like, you look at what they could do with a weather weapon. You could send a hurricane or a flood or a gale force 100 and 200 mile per hour winds somewhere.
Things like that, though, you could kind of notice. Imagine what you could do with a weather weapon being clever. Stop the rain, give them a drought.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
It's believable, that.
And like things like even just like hurricanes or what's it, like
Like lightning.
tornadoes, stuff like that. Really bad storms. No one's going to look into that.
Imagine if they got one of the worst ever lightning attacks over like a nuclear facility somewhere or something.
Yeah.
It's bound to cause damage and problems.
But mate, you think if you get a bad storm, you get flooding, the power goes out. If you give someone a bad storm, really bad storm for a week, constantly, and then if people start questioning it, you just say, "Well, it's global warming, isn't it?"
Like, I know we have no idea about what this weapon is, what it's capable of, or anything. What if they could direct an actual lightning strike?
Oh yeah, well, you never know, mate. Do you?
Assassinated by Mother Nature.
And that's it. They've always got the global warming excuse to fall back on.
That's what I mean, mate. I think governments and the big corporations, they've contributed to it more than we have the human race.
Definitely, mate. And you think about what the weather's like been in just in the UK over the last 5 to 10 years. When
It's
it's
gone
hot,
crazy.
it's crazy hot.
We
And
used
then
to
it'll
know, we'd have shit weather through the winter, the summers would be all right. Now, you
yeah,
haven't got a
and they
clue what
wouldn't just
we can go through all 4 seasons in a day.
mate, just telling me.
And we're one of the only
Like
countries on the planet that can. But you look at the countries that surround us. They don't have this problem. Look how close we are to France.
You say that though, mate. Look at France now. They've got this mega heat wave where they've closed 4,000 schools, and you're not allowed to drive on the road at the moment unless you've got a new car, because the old cars haven't got air conditioning. And that's because in 2003, 15,000 people died in France from a heat wave.
Yeah,
Now you're telling
this
me
is my point. This is my exact point. Look how close France is to us. How can the weather be so different? Like, France has always been pretty warm, haven't it? A pretty decent country weather-wise.
Oh yeah, but you think about
We
that,
can
mate,
see
right?
France from Dover, yet look how different the weather is.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's boiling, like it's scorching hot in Wales today. Really hot, like, and at
Oh
some
yeah,
points it was like unbearable. But like, you think about that, in 2003, 15,000 people died from a heat wave in like a big country in Europe, basically one of our sort of neighbours. My missus didn't even know about it until today, until I said to her, and she said, "Shut up, 15,000 people,
yeah. I
rubbish."
remember reading about that, but it was never like
But
in
it was never
countries
big
like this.
news, was it?
Nah,
So
France never
what's
is. Look at what's going on there now.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like the protests and things going on in France at the moment, you barely hear it unless it fits into what they want you to be doing or what they want you to be reading at that time.
Yeah.
And at the moment, they don't want you to read about, protests and people being happy with the way things are going. So you just don't see it.
No,
And
because they know this
France has been like
country
that
is
for a while.
close to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Fuck's sake, we got
And
Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt about to lead us, mate.
yeah, it's depressing, mate. Do you know I'd be really interested to know is what was going on in France in 2003. That's what I would like to know. Was there something where they needed to perhaps take people's attention away from it and let them make them focus on something else, or was there like some sort of a political issue? Maybe the people were getting frustrated with the leaders or whatever it may be, protests, and then something like that, like a heat wave, which affects everybody. There's no exceptions.
Or was
If you
it
don't
just
like that,
France's biggest air conditioning company doing it?
but
But money talks. Let's be
yeah,
fair.
that's very true.
It's
Money does talk, but like 15,000 people, mate.
that's
There's been wars where less people have died.
yeah, that's a crazy amount. And like we say, it's never been. How many people do you think have died in these protests? We don't know.
No, that's
Yeah,
right.
the way they put it across on our media, the protests aren't that bad. They wear some coloured jackets and walk about.
Yeah, that's what they
I
make
spoke
out,
to people
isn't it?
who've driven through France and things, and it's fucking brutal out there.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
mate,
there's
it's
daily
nasty.
riots and things going on, and we don't hear nothing.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because like you think you'd hear about it in like Britain, you'd think like if something's going on in like France or Europe, something big like protests, daily protests, or frequent protests per week, it'd be like when I was a kid, you'd have thought that would be on the news like every day, like
Yeah.
every hour sort of thing.
Like
And
anything
like,
that happens in Britain is played in every country around the world. Everyone knows what happens here.
but you know what I mean, though, mate, right? I don't think I would know about those protests unless it was for the internet and things
Facebook
like
more often
like
than
the odd
not.
video on social
Yeah.
media or YouTube, and yeah, just
Things
where
pop
people
up on
like
Facebook. You
individuals
can't
post it.
believe everything you see, but you research it more and more, and you're like, shit, man. Is this all really
Well,
going on?
yeah, like I saw a video, and I think it was just on like I think might have been Facebook or Twitter, and it just said, "Oh, so and this guy was attacked by a load of people, and they were blaming it on the people who were the yellow vests, but actually the people who had done it were police." And it was like, "Oh wow, that's a bit strange." So I then looked into it a bit more, and then I was, you find out then, oh, there's like almost daily protests going on because the people are fed up, and there's loads of reasons behind it, and there's all sorts, but
And
it's
France
fright.
is pretty much a country quite similar to Britain, really, isn't it?
Yeah, very similar, but it's frightening, mate, how easily they can suppress news. Frightening, and even in a day of social media,
Yeah.
day and age of social media, is frightening how
How many
quickly.
people won't research something and just believe what they see?
Yeah, and that
How many
this is
fake
like an
news
ongoing thing,
articles do
which
you
we
see?
thought.
Like, how many
Mm.
fake news articles are about now?
Oh God,
And
yeah.
someone can knock one of
Oh,
them up in 10 minutes and cause a catastrophe.
yeah, and it just so okay. I was gonna have a look just now to see if there was like some sort of see if I could find anything. I just typed in HARP 2003 France to see if there was literally like any conspiracy theories just off the top of my head, but my
Yeah.
laptop is being wank. So I'm going to go back to my notes. But like HARP there's a lot of conspiracy theories around it. So let's go into that. Okay, so HARP is subject to numerous conspiracy theories, as I say. There's various individuals who speculated about the hidden motivations, capabilities of the project. There was a lady called Rosalie Bertel who warned in 1996 that the deployment of HARP as military weapon was a real issue. So this is not a new thing that people were concerned about it. There was this a guy called Michael Chossudovsky stated in a book which was published by the Committee on Monetary and Economic Reform that recent scientific evidence suggests that HARP is fully operational and has the capability to trigger floods, hurricanes, droughts, and earthquakes. And over time, HARP has been blamed for generating such catastrophes as well as heavy thunderstorms in Iran, Pakistan, Haiti, Turkey, Greece, and the Philippines. So, like straight away, you look at a couple of those countries and some of the issues that the like Western world have had with them, and how much like a heavy storm could cause them problems in terms of power. Just a storm, never mind hurricanes and heavier stuff. Just a full-blown thunderstorm constantly for a couple of days. You could have the power go out. You could have
Yeah.
all sorts. Some of the other theories around it have been about like flights going down, Gulf War syndrome, chronic fatigue syndrome, things that have come about over the last sort of 10, 15, 20 years, which weren't maybe an issue before that. They've sort of blamed that on that as well. However, what I would say about that is obviously things like Gulf War syndrome and chronic fatigue, they could have been around before that, but they were just called something else, or they were diagnosed as other stuff. And then as medical things have gone on, and particularly with like Gulf War syndrome, like my vague understanding of it is that it's sort of like a bit like PTSD, which obviously, people had that after World War I and II. They just didn't know because it wasn't a thing.
What was Gulf War syndrome before PTSD?
Yeah.
I think that's
it's
what it led on to. They're both the same thing. I think the Americans had to have it to themselves, didn't they, at first?
Yeah, most likely, yeah. And like chronic fatigue syndrome, that's very similar to things like I always get the two mixed up. It's either MS or ME. I get the two mixed up with.
Yeah.
I think it's ME. ME is the one which I think is similar to chronic fatigue, because MS is multiple sclerosis, isn't it? Right. Yeah. So here you go. So so there's a former senator called Mark Begich, who wrote a book called "The Angels Don't Play the Harp." Angels Don't Play This Harp. And in his book, he claimed that the HAARP facility could trigger earthquakes, turn the upper atmosphere into a giant lens so that the sky would literally appear to burn. He also maintains that HAARP has the capabilities to be used as a mind control device, which if you think about all the different research programs and all the things that the US government has perpetrated against its own people and its own soldiers in the name of furthering science or soldiers or war or weapons, mind control, space, weapons, and like weather weapons as well. They've all, it's a proven fact that they have at the very least investigated, done tests on their own people to try and achieve those things.
Yeah.
Like, that's a proven fact from leaked, documents that have been declassified. So it's not a stretch for them to say that, they did finally, be able to achieve those things by using these massive antennae, which, radio waves, mate. The brain is pretty much, apart from the actual brain organ, is made up of like radio waves and things firing. Do you know what I mean? So it's not a stretch to think that huge antennas could affect the human brain in some way. I watched a fascinating documentary. Remember a few years ago in Bridgend, there was loads of people hanging themselves?
Yeah.
So I watched a documentary about that by this guy, and he was based in America, I think.
Yeah.
And they loosely indicated, they interviewed like some people from the families and stuff. And obviously they did. I don't think they wanted to go full blown on it because people they're not ready for that.
Yeah.
But they were like loosely saying that some of the people who were affected and ended up hanging themselves had like voices in their head, but not like voices in the head like if you like have a psychotic break or if you're schizophrenic. It was as if they were being beamed into their brain intermittently.
A voice directing them.
So
I remember that one of them said, "It's not a voice in my head; it's a voice only I can hear."
Yeah, and it's like it'll be there, and then it'll go, and then it'll come back, and it's like, what are you gonna do?
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's no worries, mate. So like it's a scary thing because number one, you might not, if that happened to you, you might not be aware of it.
You think you're going crazy.
Yeah, so
you're not going to believe that somebody can project themselves into your head.
No, absolutely not.
But
But
I don't know, to be honest, after all the Marvel films I've seen now, I'm kind of hoping someone does. Like, at the very least, grow claws.
scary though, mate, isn't it? Because like you say, especially if you're someone who's had any sort of mental health problems, even if you've not had like a psychotic break or like psychosis or like temporary psychosis or if you've got schizophrenia which is being treated and you think that you're doing quite well, it's if you've got that, if you've had just a bit of depression or whatever it may be, and then that happens, you would just think, oh, my brain's, I've got gotten that extra sort of step with it. Whereas if you haven't, you would still think that even if you haven't had those issues before, you'd still just put it down to that.
And like,
So,
to be fair, if one of your mates come up to you and said, I'm hearing these voices and they're saying this, and this, what would you think?
take them to a doctor, wouldn't you?
You know, you think there's issues, they got something wrong. You wouldn't think someone is projecting a voice into their head or someone is actually talking to them.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that I'd like check around to see if there was anyone about following them and stuff, but really, you'd be concerned and you would take them to a doctor or a hospital, really. But even though, like, I mean, we were aware that they probably got the capabilities to do this, we still wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? So, like,
They've
if
been
it's a jump
experimenting
for
with
us,
mind control way too long for them not to have figured something out, mate.
oh yeah, I can't wait to do the
Way
MK Ultra show. Yeah, damn it. I think episode 12, so not next, but the one after, I think we'll do MK Ultra and the Monotalk project, which was linked to that. That's going to be an awesome show. But yeah, it's, like you said, they've been playing around with it for so long that I
They're
think it's
bound to have
more,
figured a few things out.
yeah, it's more realistic to think they achieved it than they didn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm a massive believer in, the power of the human brain.
Oh yeah, and I mean, if you think about when you read about what's the place in Britain which was similar to MK Ultra? There was like that's going to bug me. I can't remember what it's called, but there was a place in England where supposedly to achieve mind control, they would be like torture, keep people awake, and then they would literally break them so that they could imprint, they could induce split personalities, and then they can use that to be like a sleeper agent or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're not, they poisoned their own troops with syphilis and they gave them LSD without them knowing. They're not afraid to sacrifice their own people to
No.
test these things. They see it as like a casualty of war, even though it's not, because they're not.
It's not
When
just
they go
them.
to war, they're aware of.
How many science institutions do you think, like under the table, are doing tests on homeless people, things like that? Come on.
Yeah,
They're
because they
taking
don't
bodies
see
off the
it as
street
a.
and things. They gotta be. It's obvious.
Yeah, they
I know
think
we
it's.
need to
They
progress
just
the
think that it's worth
technology,
it for the
but
science, don't they?
like in my eyes, ask for volunteers.
Yeah, there'd be people
Yeah,
who would do it, isn't there?
and all right, they'd have to be like analysed by a psychologist and things like that. And if they're of sound mind and they want to volunteer their body to science while they're alive, let them.
Yeah,
They're doing it for the good of mankind. I wouldn't do it, but there is people out there who would.
yeah, absolutely, mate.
And
There
if they're of
is.
sane
I
mind,
was just
I think stopping them do it is against their human rights. I'm totally for don't do it on animals and things like that because they don't got a fucking choice.
yeah,
Somebody's got
absolutely.
the choice and they want to let them.
Yeah, and I think so. I just searched France 2003 HARP. Finally got my laptop to work, and I just found this research paper, which was written by that Michael Choudoskovy, which I was just referring to. C. Yeah. So Mikey C said his paper is entitled "The Ultimate Weapon of Mass Destruction: Owning the Weather for Military Use," and it's like I've just downloaded the paper, which she wrote, and it's like it's got it's like a really glossy HD proper paper, which looks like it was distributed. It was written in 2004, September 2004. It looks like it was distributed to all like the newspapers and universities, and it actually mentions the heat wave in France. It doesn't quite say that it was caused, but it says that it sort of loosely links it to sort of global warming. It's global warming because of that.
Yeah.
So here's some unusual from this paper. Here's some unusual weather patterns.
I gotta go to the door a sec, mate.
Yeah, that's cool. You know when you've been tangled. So Sally away. She knows it's too late. She's walking on by. So slides away. Don't look back in anger. I heard you say, take me to the place where you go. When nobody knows. It's not okay.
I'm back.
All right, brother.
No, you carry on with that singing, mate.
Yeah. So, okay. So in this paper about HARP, look, it was a Pentagon document by the looks of it. It says the Pentagon document referring to HARP constitutes a convenient cover-up. Not a word is mentioned about its main weather warfare program, HARP, based in Alaska, jointly managed by the US Air Force and Navy. And then it's got Table 1, Unusual Weather Patterns 2003 to 2004. And then it lists these places, but it also, in some of them, has got people who witnessed it. So August to September 2004, 4 destructive hurricanes and tropical rainstorm occur in sequence within a short period of time. The unprecedented, this was unprecedented in hurricane history in the Caribbean. The island of Grenada was completely devastated. 37 people died. Roughly 2/3 of the island's 100,000 inhabitants had been left homeless. In Haiti, more than 2,000 people had died, tens of thousands homeless. The Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Cuba, and the Bahamas all devastated. And then in the US, it hit the southern states of Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, the Carolinas, in the biggest in US history. But the reason it was odd was because it was all like they were in. It wasn't. It went to one place and then moved around, as perhaps you'd expect weather to do. It was. Some of them were simultaneous in a short space of time. So it was more like a sequence rather than just. It wasn't like it was in like the Caribbean and then it sort of slowly moved around to the other countries. It was in the Caribbean, it went away, then it went somewhere else, went away. Do you know what I mean? So like It's not natural, which is why people think that, that's been artificially created. And you can understand that. Especially totally, because of the amount of people affected.
They got the ultimate get out. Climate change.
Global warming.
global warming, it's climate change, it's this, it's that, it's... What the fuck? Yeah. And we all believe it.
Yeah. But let's make no mistake, mate. The people who are saying this, it's not like me and you, just two jabronis sat at home on their laptop. This is like senators saying this. They're saying this is happening, but it's not been in the news enough.
There's not enough of them saying it, is there? Or there's not the right one saying it.
But also, how many times has been on the? How many times when this guy was saying this? How many times a day was he on the news? How many talk shows did he do? You know what I mean? Whereas we have to suffer insufferable amounts of shit on TV.
It'd be good to speak to some people from that area. You know, speak to the locals
and see how they think.
And to be honest, mate, with the power of Facebook and things like that, for some of these shows, we could just randomly message a few people and say, you know, sorry, I know you're from this area. I do a podcast, but can you give me some information on this? See what the locals say.
Yeah, see if it was
what their point of view is, because, like, we're talking about this senator and things. This whole town could back up what he says, and they could all say, we've all been saying it for years. No one listens.
Yeah, spot on, mate. And plus, it's like a lot of those places were like in sort of places which not regularly have hurricanes and tornadoes, but they do get them every couple of years or whatever. So it'd be interesting to know if they were any different. You know, was it the same as normal? You know it's coming, the wind sort of slowly builds up, so you batten down the hatches, you know, you get everything inside, blah, 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 blah. You go through your routine of trying to keep everything as safe as possible. Or was it just appeared from nowhere and then went?
The thing is, to be honest, would you even really notice? You just think
if it was a different... If, like... I mean, I say that it to a certain extent, it can't just appear because the clouds have to, you know, the clouds and the wind have to pick up, don't they? Do you know what I mean? Like you couldn't have arranged a storm if there's no rain clouds. So I'm not sure how, even with H.A.A.R P, if it was able to get storms and stuff, you know, if that's a reality, how long would it take for the clouds to form and the winds to pick up?
Wouldn't take long, would it? How many times have we had a sunny day in this country and literally within a minute the sky's grey?
Yeah, it's true.
And it can do. You know, you
does
go to bed at the height of summer and wake up in the middle of winter. That's how extreme our weather is. I don't mean it like minus like some countries and that.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's like one day,
like in our weather, we're one of the worst countries around for it. I know other people they'll have hotter and colder, but we have 4 seasons in a fucking day. They know when their hot and cold is coming. It's like, remember them showers you used to have to wash your hair as a kid? You plug on both taps. That's what our weather's like. We haven't got a fucking clue what's coming out of the end of that tap, and we're still sticking our head under it.
Yeah, I am, mate. But especially the last couple of years, like it can be like boiling hot, and then literally it'll just start hammering down, and it'll be like that for a couple of days, and then suddenly, you'll wake up one day and it's just like bright sunshine, boiling hot, and it's like, what the fuck's going on?
I did it this morning. Perfect example. As I first started, I had my hoodie on, my hood up, and everything. So it was quite chilly. Within 10 minutes, the hoodie was off. Within 5 minutes, it's back on. I think in the first hour, it went on and off about 20 times.
It's crazy.
Just where the temperature was slightly changing and things, and that's not right.
So I'll send you this paper, mate, because it's really interesting to read. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it lists like a load of countries: Brazil, Japan, China, Korea. It lists the UK. So what's it say about the UK? In 2003, the Western European summer of 2003, so this will be the one in France as well, experienced extremely high summer temperatures. Switzerland experienced its hottest June in at least 250 years, while the south of France average temperature was between 5 and 7 degrees Celsius, 9 to 13 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the long average. England and Wales also experienced their hottest month since 1976. There are several mainstream explanations for weather and weather, climate change, global warming, but none of which really fully explains within the sort of terms of reference. So, like, the highly unusual and erratic weather occurrences are getting more frequent, and the toll on like the humans and the areas and the communities and the devastation caused, it causes huge destabilization to those places. It causes huge destabilization to the agriculture, the ecosystems locally. After these weather anomalies have left and gone, it still affects the long-term, ecosystems and agriculture of those areas. But needless to say, he says they've never addressed the issues of climate manipulation for military use. And then it goes into it in detail. It's a 16-page thing. So, like I say, I'm not going to go, massively into it, but it's certainly, anyone who finds this subject interesting, or if they're worried about it, I highly recommend this post. I actually might post this. I'm going to post a link to the PDF in the description for the video, so people can just go and have a look at it, because it's really interesting. So yeah, and obviously there's been so there was this senator who literally says that the sky appears to burn, and he maintains the mind control aspect of it as well. A Russian military journal wrote that the ionospheric testing would trigger a cascade of electrons that could flip the Earth's magnetic poles. So you imagine, like, that seems a bit extreme, but like, how much do they not know what they're doing in terms of, yes, they know what they're doing in terms of, we're sending energy to this part of the sky, and we're trying to achieve this goal. But like, realistically, Mother Nature, the Earth, the way, let's not forget that we've never been further than a certain amount of miles in depth so we don't really know what's at the center of the Earth. We don't really know how we got here. We don't really know why the magnetic poles of the Earth are like they are. I know there's theories and there's belief systems and science and things like this, but really, we don't know. So you imagine what would happen to the Earth and the people on it if the two poles, magnetic poles, flipped. Like, what would happen, do you think?
One of my favourite authors is a guy called Clive Cussler. Have you heard of him?
I haven't, no.
All his books are like spy-type thrillers. He's got like different heroes he uses in his books, but they're all based on, the world is in danger from some psycho-terrorist, but everything is like factual and historical. And one of them, it was about a polar shift, North and South poles switching. Someone had a machine that could control this, etc. And it went through all the like catastrophes that had happened and the knock-on effect and everything. And basically, the world, they think it's what killed the dinosaurs off. A few people.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because it would change everything.
Because what I was trying to think of is what would happen? What would, like, instantly now? Like, I'm not talking about like the long-term effect. What would happen instantly? Like, what would the effect be to like Joe Public?
Oh, I'm talking instantly. If there was a polar shift, instantly, it would affect all electronics, things like that. Anything with magnets, radar, GPS. It was like the list was endless of things it would affect immediately. Computers,
So yeah, that's another
internet,
scary aspect. No.
anything with an aerial.
Fucking hell. So that's another scary aspect to HARP. Like that was written by someone in the Russian military. But I mean, it's difficult to know if how much of that with the Russians is, them just saying it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I mean, it kind of fits in with everything we know about HARP as well, and everything like conspiracy theory wise about it. So obviously, Jesse Ventura is, don't you?
Yeah, the body.
Former wrestler, the Body, Jesse the Body Ventura, used to be with the WWE, former governor of Minnesota, and very, very, very into his government conspiracies.
Probably most famous for being final boss in The Running Man.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a TV show called Conspiracy Theories with Jesse Ventura, where, much like what we do, they had a different conspiracy each week, and they would go through it. Not always my cup of tea. I really enjoyed watching them. They're very entertaining. Sometimes they Hollywood up it a bit.
Yeah,
and
they Americanize it.
There's like a guy like in a black van. It's like we're going to meet this secret guy and secret source in a black van. You know who's in it? One of his researchers is June Sarapong. Do you remember her?
Yeah.
From like Blue Peter and stuff, which is so random.
Crazy,
when I first saw her on her, but yeah, it's really good. It's quite, they've did loads of shows, 9/11, and they did one on HARP. And he was sort of questioning whether the government is used to manipulate the weather or bombard people with mind control radio waves. And they spoke to someone from the Air Force, and he asked if he could make an official request to go and visit the station. Obviously, they said no. So they showed up anyway to the HARP. Obviously, they were denied access. Hurricane Katrina is another one which people think is linked to that, which obviously was devastating to millions of people. So, and just the lastly
I think
on
they're
HARP.
going to link every single major weather catastrophe to it.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, that's that. You're right. There is.
Like I remember with the Haitian earthquake one, they all blamed it on that, and I'm pretty sure after it was proved there was some like border plate in America that was undiscovered until this time. Some tectonic plate. I think it was something to do with that, but they could just tell us that. I don't.
Yeah, they could. I was going to say.
We don't know what's under America.
No, especially because it's full of bloody underground bases.
And like the tectonic plates and things like that, we only know what we can be shown. There's no way we can actually go and find out that information for ourselves.
Yeah, that's you're right there. So I wasn't going to touch on this, but I just found this really interesting thing. So just lastly on HARP, I'm going to touch on the guy who worked there. So, but I just wanted to go on to the links to HARP and.
Did you just say you're going to touch the guy who worked there?
Yeah, I'm going to touch him now. It's so obviously like things like FEMA and stuff, which are always very dodgy. There's a lot of people who say that HARP was to do with Hurricane Katrina, like people who were there, and they say it was not natural. But playing devil's advocate, as we like to do, it could have just been one of the biggest hurricanes of all time, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But so there's claims that HARP led to flight TWA 800 exploding, and obviously the earthquakes, the tsunamis. So what the main theory about Hurricane Katrina is not that they created it, is that the hurricane was coming, but they enhanced it by firing ions into it to turn it into a Category 5 hurricane. And then it traveled in a straight line, as opposed to most hurricanes, which they go off and they're random, whereas it just went from straight to it. And the guy we talked about a few shows ago, David Icke, posted an article on his website alleging that it was steered into New Orleans intentionally. But I mean, there's no proof, there's no way to do it. It's just theories of people, and like you say,
Why was
people.
it steered there, though?
Yeah,
There's
and
no reason for him to do it.
I'm sure we could find a reason with a bit of
Probably
a bit of
little reasons, but not a
research, but
major enough one,
nothing
I don't
serious.
think.
The only thing I would say, I'd be interested to see who died in Hurricane Katrina, if there was any politicians, whistleblowers, that sort of thing, who died in Hurricane Katrina, and they perhaps were traveling in like a plane or a
Yeah.
car, and then maybe if you look into like, did they die in the hurricane, or was their body put there? It's the perfect cover-up.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect cover-up. So, physicist Bernard Eastland claimed that H.A.A.R P includes technology based on his patents that has a capability to modify the weather and neutralize satellites instantly. It's been proposed that like low frequency background hums, you can hear them when you're in nearby places. Two Georgia men who were arrested on drug charges in November 2016 were reportedly plotting a domestic terrorism based on conspiracy theories about H.A.A.R P. They had a massive arsenal that included AR-15 rifles, Glock handguns, Remington, thousands of rounds of ammunition. And according to the police, which, take that with a pinch of salt straight away, but according to the police, the men wanted to destroy H.A.A.R P because they believe the facility manipulates weather, controls minds, and even traps the souls of people. Police say that the men confessed and said that God told them to do it and blow up this machine so they could keep their souls. Now, do you know what interests me about that? Like, to me, all of that, it seems like it's just the police, like, hyping it up a bit.
Yeah.
And then right at the end, where it says that God told them to do it. If you had a machine or a facility that could project words into people's minds, and you wanted to control the world, what would you do to do it? You speak to them as God.
Of course you would.
And as I think I said to you in our very first show, I think that at some point over the next 10, 15 years, we will see like an alien attack type thing. But I think there is a very good chance that it'll be a fake alien attack, in like a false flag thing, but it'll be like flying saucers and holograms and special effects and all this
Planted
sort of thing.
bombs and all the other stuff.
So say they've got the technology to project words into people's minds. If they could make that into like a small device that could be put on your body or on your wrist or something, and you had people trying to portray themselves as having psychic abilities or being the voice of God or aliens, be a perfect little tool for them, wouldn't it? Just to be able to speak to people without speaking, and then people could believe it straight away. It's fascinating stuff, mate.
It's crazy, mate.
I know we're going off on like a bit of a tangent, and it's all like a lot of what I just said is massively hypothetical and seems unlikely. It's it's one of those things. So
The thing
CBC,
is,
which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, sorry, I just want to say they're one of the TV channels in Canada. They did a documentary on H.A.A.R P, and they said the European Union called the project a global concern and passed a resolution calling for more information on its health and environmental risks. Despite those concerns, officials at H.A.A.R P insist the project is nothing more sinister than radio science. So it's not like just conspiracy theorists, it's not just podcasters, and it's not just one senator. People are not comfortable with what this facility does.
no. And
Sorry, mate. What
we
we?
don't understand what they're shooting in the air and why.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
why are they doing this? Because it's only the upper atmosphere they do it, isn't it? About, I think it's above like 55 miles up to 300-ish.
Yeah, that sounds about right, mate. Sounds about right. Yeah, and it's like, why are they doing it? What are they
Yeah.
hoping to achieve? What's the big
That you've nailed on the
scientific
head,
message?
mate. What is the end game with it?
Yeah.
Have you read the books,
Um,
Philip Pullman's The Dark Trilogies? Or seen the film The Golden
the
Compass?
dark.
Have you seen the film The
No,
Golden
I haven't.
Compass?
Oh, what's
It's
that? Is that like?
it's a film, basically it's based in a fantasy world, but your
Mhm.
soul walks around with you and it's an animal.
Right.
And they have a machine that can splice it, can cut the soul away from the person. And in the air, there's all little atoms and energy and things, and certain people can see it and harness it and do things.
Right. Okay.
Sounding quite familiar to the stuff we've been talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like, and we've like where we've been going through it there, like the people who are against it are mentioning things about like souls and things like that. Maybe that's what they're like scientifically. Maybe they're trying to prove the existence of a soul, or they're trying to detach someone's soul from their body. To maybe that's their sort of like their scientific end game, if you like.
yeah.
But yeah, that's my thing. Is like you don't why are they doing it? What are they doing? Do they know what they're doing? Do they know the damage long term they're causing by doing it? Maybe they could say, oh yeah, this is getting a bit hot and it's a bit cold and the weather's slightly affected. I would argue that it's been heavily affected from when I was younger. The weather in the UK has changed hugely, hugely.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and I think it's changed in an unnatural way, in that it's not gradually got
I remember
sort of
when I was a
more.
kid, we used to have. Do you remember the place in Barry, the bars, the open swimming pool we used to have?
Yeah, yeah.
We'd be over there all
Mm-hmm.
summer. You'd have the odd few days where it'd rain, but in general, we'd have a pretty decent summer. And
Yeah,
look at it
it's
now.
just don't know, do you?
We don't even get a few days of summer in a row. The weather changes and it's like today and yesterday they've been boiling. But we'll probably have a storm or something tomorrow to break it all up again.
Oh yeah,
It's crazy.
it's crazy, and it's that's so. A lot of the stuff which we talk about in these shows is hypothetical, or is people trying to piece together information. Like, that's a proven fact. The weather in the UK since when we were little, 20 years, 30 years ago, has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Winter and summer.
Not
The
even a little
winters,
bit. It's
the
just
winters are freezing compared to what I was when I was younger. But then sometimes, okay, the last 3 years, so my birthday's in November, and when I was little, I used to wake up on my birthday and it would be freezing. I could see my breath, everything. Like like remember it as a kid.
I
The last sort of 5 years, my I haven't even had to like de-ice the car and stuff. Like,
remember
how many times do
November
you still have
just
to
gone. I
strip
remember
ice?
being out working in shorts and a vest in November.
Yeah,
And then there's times in summer where I got like thermals on and things.
yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
crazy. But how many times this winter, or the winter just gone, how many times do you reckon you iced your car? I could probably count on two hands how many times I had to
Yeah, it
scrape
wasn't
ice off
many at
the car.
all, to be fair, this year. But the
And
temperatures were
that's in
colder,
itself
I
is
feel,
frightening.
maybe.
Like, I feel like in the mornings it was warmer, but like during the day and stuff, it was freezing cold. Like, it's just all over the shop, mate. And
Yeah.
I do, I legitimately think that there's something causing that. Maybe it is global warming. Maybe global warming is real, and blah, blah, blah. We'll have to do a show on that as well.
Yeah.
Because that'll be a good one, because there is people who believe it not to be a real thing. So this show was going to be on HAARP and some other bits and pieces, but I think we'll
other
keep it at
secret
HAARP.
technologies need its own show, mate.
Yeah, so I had quite a lot of information on suppressed energy, which was quite a cool one, like
0 point energy, yeah.
people who've been killed over it.
I got quite a few on like the CIA mind control things and torture techniques and stuff they're using. And
oh yeah, and like I say, I wanted to do a show number 12. I think I want to do the Morna Talk project and MK Ultra together.
Yeah,
because I think that's going to be really interesting, and there's loads of good information. So in the description for this video, I will put links to the audio versions for people to download. I'll put links to that paper, which Mikey C wrote, because I can't pronounce his surname, about HAARP, because I really advise anyone who's interested in global warming, in the stuff we've been talking about tonight, the risks of HAARP, read that paper, because it is really, really interesting. I also advise people to watch the Jesse Ventura documentary on HAARP, but most of all, watch the History Channel one, which is on YouTube. It's about 45 minutes long, and it is eye-opening, shall we say. You can find Rhys on Twitter at @SureCeltic. You can find us on Twitter at @AceCast_Nation. You can find us on Facebook.com/AceCastNation, YouTube.com/C/AcePodcastNation, Stitcher, Spotify, Pod.co, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. Thank you for joining me, mate. Appreciate it.
always a pleasure.
It's always good fun. These are nice, light-hearted, relaxing shows. We've got loads of stuff coming up. Got a show on Harold Shipman. Got a show with actress Anna Bowett. Got 2 mental health in sport shows with a mental health support worker who works with footballers. And I recorded an episode with former Middlesbrough player Alan Moore today, where he talked in detail about some of the mental health issues he's had since retiring, including 2 suicide attempts. So it was quite harrowing listening to him, but we both believe that by speaking openly and honestly about about mental health, and I just feel like the more people who open up about their own struggles, hopefully we can help, even if it's just one person. So
It's
please, check us out.
More people do need to open up, but less people need to criticize as well.
Oh yeah. There's plenty of criticizers.
Yeah, that's what stops the people opening up.
Yeah, and do you know what I say to the people who criticize?
What?
I say, piss off, mate. That's what I say. So yeah, check out all those shows. We got the weekly conspiracy theory shows. We're doing the second part of our 9/11 show. We'll be filming it soon, so that'll be out next week. Following this, so you can find the first part of the 9/11 show on episode 9. 9/11. Nice. So they'll be, they're interesting, good time. Loads of stuff coming up. So give us a follow, give us a subscribe, leave a comment, share, tell your friends, tell all your friends, tell your family, get on board, join the Ace Nation army, as it were. 6,500 of us. Get involved in the conversations. Tell us what you think about HAARP. And is it real? Does it control the weather? Does it control the minds? Are we all fucked? Thank you for joining us. Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Ciao for now.